Hello, Carl from Cabrillo Marine Aquarium. Today I'm out collecting some of the most interesting and important life forms on our ocean. Join me, won't you? And there we are, a plankton sample. There are thousands of living things swimming around and floating around inside this little jar. Let's go take a closer look. To get a good look at the plankton that I caught, we're going to need a microscope slide, and a couple of drops of water with the plankton inside. This microscope is hooked up to a monitor so I can record what we see. So let's take a look. Plankton isn't just one kind of plant or animal. It is a term used to describe all the free-living organisms that drift and float in the water. It comes from the Greek word planktos, which means to drift or wander. Strong swimmers, like marine mammals, sea turtles, squids, most fish, and other aquatic animals are called nekton, which comes from the Greek word nektos, meaning to swim. There are several types of plankton, and most are small and hard to see. There are bacterial plankton, which are water-living bacteria, and mycoplankton, which are related to molds and fungi. But today we're going to be looking at the most familiar types of plankton, zooplankton and phytoplankton. Zooplankton, also pronounced zooplankton, are the animal types of plankton. That's easy to remember. Just think about what you see at a zoo. Animals. As you can see, they tend to move around quite a bit, and like all animals, eat other organisms. Phytoplankton, on the other hand, make their own food from carbon dioxide, water, nutrients, and sunlight using photosynthesis. So, phytoplankton are plant-like plankton, like these dinoflagellates and diatoms. You'll notice that many of them are moving. Surprisingly, many phytoplankton are capable of movement, either swimming or gliding around in the water. You may have heard of red tides recently off the coast of California. These are caused by a population explosion, or bloom, of certain types of dinoflagellates, like this one, Noctiluca. Many red tide dinoflagellates are also bioluminescent, which means they can make light in their bodies when stressed or disturbed. At night, red tides often have flashes of blue light when fish or dolphins swim through the bloom, or when waves crash on shore. You have probably noticed that many of the plankton have bristles and spines on them, or have wide flat shapes. These are adaptations to keep them from sinking in the water too quickly. Phytoplankton need to stay close enough to the surface to get sunlight, but too near the surface, ultraviolet light, which gives us tans and sunburns, can kill them. The zooplankton need to be able to feed on the phytoplankton, but cannot get too much UV light either. So, it's a tricky balance between sinking and floating they have to maintain. Plankton can also be classified by how long they stay plankton. Meroplankton are organisms that spend only part of their life cycles as plankton, like this veliger larva. If conditions are right, this plankter, that's what you call an individual by the way, one plankter, two plankton, this plankter can grow up to be a snail. Most of the ocean animals we are familiar with, except sharks and marine mammals, are in this group. Some organisms will be plankton their entire life. These are called holoplankton. Bacterioplankton, mycoplankton, most phytoplankton, and some zooplankton, like these copepods, are holoplankton, as are the jellies. Being plankton isn't about size. Believe it or not, these moon jellies, which are quite visible and not that small, as you can see next to my hand, are actually plankton. Plankton has to do with your swimming ability. If you can't swim against a current, kind of like a kite caught in the wind, then you would be plankton. So while most plankton is smaller than 2 millimeters, some plankton, which is called macroplankton, like these bigger jellies, are also plankton. As a matter of fact, the biggest jelly is the biggest plankton in the world. The lion's mane jelly, which lives up in the Arctic, can have tentacles over 120 feet long, and the bell, which is the part that you see pulsing going in and out here, can be about 8 feet across. That's some big plankton. This ctenophore, called a sea gooseberry, is another holoplankton that is big enough to see as it swims around. Although it does have a gelatinous body, they have no stingers and are not closely related to the jellies. Why are plankton so important? They are the beginning of almost every food chain in the ocean and all aquatic habitats. If it lives in water, there is a good chance that its food supply depends on plankton at some point. Even more importantly, we need them to breathe. Phytoplankton and bacterial plankton produce over half the oxygen in our atmosphere, maybe as much as 70%. So, in all that water out there, each drop has hundreds and thousands of little organisms living in it, some of them making the oxygen we need to breathe. Doesn't that sound like an excellent reason for us to do all we can to keep our oceans clean and healthy? I look forward to having you join me again soon to explore more wonders of the marine world.